Odyssey NFL insider Peter King. And Insider Calls are brought to you by Old Spice. Men have skin too. Men like Peter King. Hi, Peter. Oh, do we hear you okay? There you are.
Hey,
now
Peter.
we got you.
You have me?
We got you. How you doing?
Okay. Everything's going great. It's a lovely evening in Brooklyn, New York, and getting ready tomorrow to go to Houston for the playoff game there on Saturday, and then we'll go to Detroit on Sunday. So I'm going to do a twin bill this weekend.
I love it. We would love to ask you about some of these games coming up for sure. But top of mind, and we've asked you every week, and we know where things sit to a degree, but here we are at the end of the season. Peter, what do you think the MVP vote is going to be for you?
Oh, I cast my ballot yesterday, and I voted for Lamar Jackson, and I had Brock Purdy number 2 on my list.
You care to finish out the entire top 5?
Sure, I did Josh Allen 3, Dak Prescott 4, Tyreek Hill 5.
Okay. It's interesting because we were batting about what we thought you might think, and I actually had you with C.J. Stroud as the 5 spot. Did you have some debate over Josh Allen and McCaffrey and C.J. and sort of the bottom of your ballot? Was that tough to go 2 through 5?
Well, I mean, look, it's all these things are tough. The Defensive Player of the Year was absolutely impossible. But I think on the MVP, as we've talked about before, I'm probably more inclined to think quarterbacks than anything else because the quarterback is the most important guy on virtually every team. And in this particular case, I think I look at the big games late in the year and I look at what Josh Allen did, and I really like what he did in getting Buffalo almost singularly back to the 2nd seed. And it was really a battle between, I was always going to put Brock Purdy 2, and it was a battle really for me between Dak Prescott and Josh Allen for number 3. And probably early in the year, maybe a month or so ago, I would have had Tyreek Hill, as high as 3, but he's fallen off in the last, I don't know, whatever you'd call it, last month or so. And he didn't break the receiving record, even though he obviously, with a 17-game schedule, he certainly had that opportunity. But I ended up putting him 5 because I think that for 12 or 13 weeks of the year, he was hugely, hugely valuable. The most important non-quarterback in pro football. So that's kind of how I looked at it.
Peter, in your opinion, what is the gap between the 1 seeds and everyone else? How likely is Ravens-Niners?
Well, everybody at this time of year, almost every year, has a good feel and really believes in the 1 seed because they have so many advantages. I mean, Christian McCaffrey has got 20 days to heal for this calf injury. And so, you look at it and you basically say, they should have a huge advantage. But, I'm not sure. I think this is an odd year in that look how different the Dallas Cowboys are in week 5 to now. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are extremely, in my opinion, they've got a much better chance to play a better game than they did in week 5. I don't know why that is, but they're just playing better than they did back in early October. So I think the way I look at this is I don't think that a team in either conference, because, look, let's talk about the AFC for a second. When you look at the AFC, the one thing that you see, quite honestly, is we're all assuming that Lamar Jackson is going to play great like he has all the way through the regular season. Well, Lamar Jackson's played 4 playoff games in his life. He's 1-3, and the Baltimore Ravens have averaged 13 points a game in those 4 games. He has been a lousy playoff player. So he's got to prove that he's going to play well in the playoffs. And I think that is the one thing about at least the AFC that I think is pretty difficult to project. And look, the one thing about the 49ers, and I'm not saying they're going to lose if they play the Rams in any way, shape, or form, because I don't think they would, but that could be a pretty impossible, divisional round matchup. Not impossible, but a much more difficult matchup, divisional round than a 1 seed would usually have if the Rams end up winning this weekend. So I think there are trap games to be had for both of the number 1 seeds.
Who do you think poses the biggest threat to Baltimore in the AFC?
Buffalo. I like Cleveland a lot, too. I mean, in my opinion, the 2 most dangerous teams in the AFC to go into Baltimore, at least as I look at it, would be Cleveland. How ironic it would be to see Joe Flacco go into Baltimore next weekend if that's the way it falls. But the other one, I think, is Buffalo because, and look, you can say this with almost any team, but if Buffalo plays a clean game, they could beat anybody in football by 10 points right now, today. But the problem with Buffalo is that they don't play a lot of clean games. They turn it over a lot. They were fortunate that Miami couldn't get anything done last weekend. And so, therefore, they had enough to win a game in which they didn't play very well. So I think Buffalo is the most dangerous team for them, but most likely Cleveland has the best defense right now. Clearly, they're the number 1 rated defense, and they probably have the defense that's playing the best late in the year. So to me, I think Baltimore is going to have 2 very tough games if that's how it falls.
Football Morning in America, and Peter King, Odyssey NFL insider, with us here as he is every week on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Peter, because it has a lot to do with who the 49ers are going to see next week, let's dive a little bit into that Rams-Lions game. Lions are a favorite. Everybody seems to think the Rams are going to win. And there's the Matt Stafford going home story, but I'm sort of more interested in the Jared Goff, hey, McVay, you were wrong angle of this story. Like, how do you see history affecting this game?
Well, Jared Goff might think deep down, hey, McVay, you're wrong, but the moment that Matthew Stafford hoisted the Lombardi trophy was the moment that Sean McVay was absolutely right. He wanted to change quarterbacks in order to win a Super Bowl. He changed quarterbacks. He won a Super Bowl. Ergo, I mean, Goff can say whatever he wants, and I'm sure that to this day it still probably hurts him what happened. But I definitely don't think the Rams were wrong there. I think both of those stories are interesting. I think the one part of this story that I wonder about, honestly, is Matthew Stafford is a steely guy, tough guy. He reminds me a lot of his very good friend Clayton Kershaw, who never seems to be too affected by the moment. And I kind of look at this game and I say, how can you not be affected by the moment? Matthew Stafford was drafted to bring playoff football to Detroit. Now he's bringing playoff football to Detroit, playing for another team. And, that plus the fact that Detroit's front seven is going to create huge problems, especially Aiden Hutchinson, is going to create huge problems for the Rams in terms of protection. So he's going to have to throw quick. I don't know if he's going to be able to play a great game because I think he's going to be under great pressure in this game.
It's going to be fantastic to see a Detroit home crowd in the playoffs, first time in 30 years for the Motor City to have that home game. The other NFC one, Peter, is just baffling to me. The once dominant Philadelphia Eagles at Tampa Bay and the fighting Mayfields. What do you make of that one? Is Philadelphia truly washed, or can they rise up and win this game on the road, in your opinion?
2 consecutive games against Arizona at home and against a bad Giants team on the road. They have had basically, well, the first one was a must-win because you figure that in order to win the division, we got to win out because Dallas has, Dallas is not going to, lose to Washington in the last game of the year. So I think the way I look at it is, the Eagles have really dug themselves a huge hole. I don't think they can get out of it. You really don't have. You have an aging defense with nobody stepping up right now, to have blown these 2 games to a previously 3-win team, Arizona, and to the Giants, who they've beaten 900 times in a row, and they're down 24-0 at the half. That is with everyone on the team, everyone figuring, knowing exactly what's at stake. We have to win this game, and they don't even come close. And look, I think one of the strangest things that I've ever seen is Vegas or whoever makes these lines these days making the Eagles a favorite coming into that game. I mean, has there been any television shown in the state of Nevada recently? I mean, have they not seen how pathetic the Eagles are? I don't know. I couldn't pick them now to beat. I don't mean to exaggerate. I wouldn't pick them to win a game against any team in football right now.
Big statement. Peter King with us here on 95.7 The Game. Peter, I want to ask you about Kyle Shanahan. I know you know him well. You've talked to him so many times. And once this thing gets rolling here, look, outside of major injury, he's had some chances. This feels like his best chance. I've actually spoken to some people in Vegas. The Niners would still be favored even if they play the Ravens. So they're going to be the favorite as often as they play the rest of the way. So what's on the line for Kyle Shanahan in this run?
I don't know, because unless they lose by double digits in the divisional game, I don't see anybody, even if the 49ers don't make the Super Bowl, saying, well, Kyle Shanahan can't win the big one. I mean, look, there's a lot of people who say that anyway, because going back to Atlanta in 28-3 and going back to, the playoffs since then, I get it. I don't say that at all. I think he's a good coach, and I think he's done a really, really good job with this team. So I think the labels that are put on players like this, or that put on coaches like this, it's fine to put these labels on, quite honestly, but I'm not one who necessarily follows it. Now, when I talked about Lamar Jackson and that he hasn't been a good playoff quarterback, it's different being 1-3, averaging 13 points a game, than what has happened to Kyle Shanahan in the playoffs. He's lost some big games, obviously, but I don't look at any of those losses as being, look, you can say the Atlanta loss to the Patriots is embarrassing because they were up by 25, and I might agree with you. I'm sure that, on his all-time list of games he's ever coached, that's the one that bothers him the most, and it should. But I don't view him as a guy who, unless they just totally crap out of these playoffs, that I will look at in any way other than, the guy's a really good coach.
And just a coordinator during that 25-point meltdown, so maybe he gets a half a loss for that, or a third of a loss. Seems unfair to me to peg that one on Kyle. You mentioned earlier your Defensive Player of the Year ballot being a tough one. Care to share how that went? And did you have any Niners in there, a team that's been one of the best defenses all year long?
That's one of the things that made it difficult. I mean, Nick Bosa's had a very good year. Maybe not his best year, but he's had a very good year. But, you know, when I did this list, they asked, the AP asked for 3 winners for Defensive Player of the Year for all the awards other than the MVP. They asked 1 to 3, and so I mean, I had until what day is today? I had until Wednesday noon to get that in, and I turned it in Wednesday morning, and I literally woke up Wednesday and I said, "You got to make a decision." I've been struggling with this since the weekend. I mean, most guys didn't play over the weekend. Obviously, TJ Watt did. He played well. He got hurt, but he had 2 sacks in that game. But here's what it came down to for me. I ended up voting for Myles Garrett, and one of the things, because I think that Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, they all have tremendous pressure numbers, good stats in that regard. And, you know, I kind of looked at Myles Garrett. It came down to Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons for me. And I got this play. I'm writing about this for Monday when I explain my ballot. And I've got this play that I have not been able to get out of my mind the whole year as I've thought about this. You guys may not even remember it. It was just a highlight in one game this year. Cleveland was playing Indianapolis, and Myles Garrett lined up in the middle of near the middle of the line on a field goal try by the Colts. And when the ball was snapped, he high jumped the center, and he blocked the field goal. And Cleveland won the game. It was a huge play in the game. Even though it happened in the second quarter, it was a big play in the game. And those are the kind of things I just can't. I'm not saying I voted for him for one play. I didn't. I think his numbers in all other ways are exemplary. And the one other thing I would say about this is, and one of the reasons why this was so hard. Okay, so I didn't even have Max Crosby in my top 3. And do you realize? I just finished writing this as an early note for my column this coming Monday. How about this? You realize that this year in the NFL, edge rushers total this year played 14 games where the edge rusher played all the snaps. In other words, there were 14 games this year that an edge rusher in the game played every snap. Okay, Max Crosby had 10 of those.
Oof.
And 4 other guys each had 1. So, I mean, think of this. That guy played 10 complete games this season, and he was the best far and away against the run out of all edge rushers in football by almost every metric. And I had him. I would have had him 4th because those other 3 guys were so stupendous, I thought. So I ended up picking Parsons 2nd and TJ Watt 3rd, even though Watt became the first guy ever to lead the league in sacks 3 times. And I don't know, that was as I look back, and I've been doing this voting for a long time.
Jeez.
That, I have to tell you, was as tough a vote as I ever remember.
Tied up in knots, Peter King.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah, very, very cool stuff. Peter King with us. Okay, Peter, forget the Monday game between the Bucs and Eagles because you've already kind of laid out that you don't even think the Eagles should be the favorite. Let's take the other 5 games. Where's the upset this weekend?
Good question.
Well, I don't think Miami is going to go to the Arctic Circle and be able to win that game, especially because basically their top 4 pass rushers are all gone. So I think Kansas City is going to win that game. Let me ask you this question, because I don't even know. Who is favored in Cleveland, Houston?
Cleveland is.
Yeah.
By just like 2.5, I think it is.
Yeah, down to 2.
Yeah, I think that's a totally absolute coin flip game. I probably would pick Cleveland. I definitely would pick Pittsburgh or Buffalo to beat Pittsburgh. And look, I think Green Bay is going to play well in Dallas, but I don't think they're going to win the game. So by process of elimination, I guess I'd say the Rams, even though I would never encourage anybody to put a nickel against the Lions playing at home in that game, especially with all their weapons. So I think there's a chance that favorites just totally roll the, just basically win everywhere. And if Tampa indeed is an underdog come Monday, that would be the one I would pick.
Okay, that's strong. I guess the follow-up is, will Pittsburgh score in Buffalo? And I'm looking at the AccuWeather right now, currently 1 degree in Kansas City. You sure you don't want to go to Kansas City instead of Energy Stadium? Peter, come on.
Do you want to know why I picked Houston? I picked Houston Monday morning, okay? Because usually on these next 2 weekends, I go to 2 games. So it's just fun for me. So I like to go to 2 games. So anyway, I picked Houston because I said that how great is it that Cleveland and Houston are playing in the Deshaun Watson Bowl, and he's nowhere to be seen. No matter who wins that game, it's a great story. So I said, I really want to go to that game. It's a very cool thing, but the Kansas City game, it interests me, but I just have a feeling that Miami is going to be a little bit like San Diego was in that AFC Championship game in the Icebox in Cincinnati 40 years ago or 41 years ago. I don't know how a team from Miami can go when it's 15 below wind chill and have much of a chance to win a football game. But who knows? We'll see.
Peter, great stuff as always. We're heading into Wildcard weekend. We can't wait. Already looking forward to talking to you next week.
All right, guys. You take care. Thanks.
Okay. Peter King with us every week on Willard and Dibs. Insider calls are brought to you by Old Spice Gentleman's Blend Body Wash, providing exfoliation plus 24/7 moisturization because men have skin too. That was Odyssey NFL insider Peter King.